So today's lesson is going to be about taking what you did over the summer and applying it. So we've been writing equations of lines, and so now we're going to be writing equations of lines from word problems. So instead of me giving you 2 points, we're going to have to interpret a word problem in order to write what we call a linear model. So you want to always look at the given information to decide which form will be the easiest to use to write your equation. But a couple of things that we need to know when we're talking about word problems, it's usually easier if you write your final answer in y equals mx plus b. Now, we haven't talked about functions yet, but what you are going to realize is that y is a function of what x is. So when we use y equals mx plus b, we're going to get to see things very, very clear for ourselves. We also need to know a little bit more about the variables. So when we're looking at a linear equation, x is referred to as the independent variable, and y is referred to as the dependent variable. Because what's really important is that you must know that y depends on what x is, okay? So when we're doing that, we want to make sure we have to figure out what is x and what's the y. So I always ask myself a question. The question I ask is, what depends on what? What depends on what? Why is that I ask myself that question? Well, because y always depends on x. And I'm going to show you in an example. One thing, just kind of a little hint for you, is that time is usually always x. Okay, time is usually always x. So that's something that we can definitely think of. And if you think about it in a coordinate form, we write our coordinates with the x first, the y second. So remember, the x is the independent, the y is the dependent. Okay? All right, well, let's look at an example. Here's a word problem. Sometimes a word problem involves a constant rate or speed and gives a relationship at some point in time between each variable. Now, let's just remember that the minimum you need to write an equation of a line, okay, our minimum is a point and a slope. Okay, so Marty's spending money at the average rate of $3 per day. Now, that's an average rate, means a constant rate. And remember, we talked about the word slope also meaning a constant rate of change, right? A rate of change. So in this case, he's spending money at an average rate of $3 per day. So that tells me that the slope, or the average rate of change, is $3, okay? But it's going down, so it's a negative slope, so -3. All right, so I see that slope in the equation. I'm going to fill that in for myself. Now, identifying the variables. The amount left depends on the number of days. So what depends on what? Y depends on x. So x is going to be our number of days, and y is going to be the amount left. So now look at how I just looked at that problem, used what depends on what to help me figure out the x and the y, okay? All right, so now I've got my variables. I know what my slope is, but now all I have is after 14 days, he has $68 left. Okay, so that's a relationship between some point in time. So if x is my days and 68 is the amount left, I can write that as a coordinate point, 1468. Okay, so don't have a y-intercept in this case that's given to me, but I do have that point. That point is 1468. And I don't have a second point. So I have a slope and a point. So it says write an equation for the situation. Now I can use those skills we learned this summer. I can use point slope. So I'm going to do y minus 68 equals negative 3 times x minus 14. Just a reminder, point slope, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. All right, now remember I said I wanted your final answers for these types of questions in y equals mx plus b. So we are going to simplify and put it in y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to distribute the 3. So y minus 68 equals negative 3x, making sure that when I distribute that negative to this negative, it becomes positive 42. One more step, I'm going to add the 68 to both sides, and I get y equals negative 3x plus 110. Okay, so now that's our equation. Now that equation, again, represents y is the amount left in the account based on the number of days. So the next question asks you, use your equation to find the amount of money he began with. Okay, so how many days have passed if it's the amount he began with? Well, hopefully you're saying to yourself, then x would be 0 days. All right, so let's see what happens. Y equals negative 3 times 0 plus 110. Well, that goes away, so it's 110. So he began with $110. And this is another reason that I like y equals mx plus b, because now I know that the 110, the y-intercept, is his starting value, his starting point. And that's important. You can always see what they started with, okay, began with, based on the y-intercept. That negative 3 is telling me that it's going down 3 days, okay? I'm sorry, it's going down $3 a day because x is days. So that y equals mx plus b tells me a lot about what's happening, okay? All right, let's try again. Diane knows a phone call to a friend costs 25 cents for the first 3 minutes, and then 10 cents for each additional minute. The number of minutes you call and the cost are related. All right, so I have to decide what depends on what. Does minutes depend on time, or does time depend on the minutes you're on the call? Well, hopefully you're sending that the cost depends on the minutes on the phone. So that tells me that minutes is my x, so number of minutes on call, and the cost to the call is my y. All right, so now we want to go through what's the given information in the problem. All right, well, we were told that our starting value was going to be 25 cents, and that was for 3 minutes. So I want you to think about that for a second, okay? So my starting value, that is my y-intercept. So 0.25, okay? Y-intercept. I'm given that it's going down, or that I'm getting charged 10 cents for each minute. So that's my slope. 10 cents, okay? And when this was 25 cents, I'm going to do that. All right, it says write an equation for the situation. Okay, so I have now, in this case, I have my slope and a y-intercept, so I can write it directly in y equals mx plus b. So y equals 0.10x plus 0.25. All right, so now I've got it in y equals mx plus b. Again, that's my initial charge, or my beginning. And then that my slope is telling me that per minute I'm going to get an additional 10 cents. So then it asks you, use your equation to find the cost of a 30-minute call. Now, the only thing we have to do here is we really have to think about it, because remember, it was 25 cents for the first 3 minutes. That was the initial charge. So if I'm doing a 30-minute call, that means for X, I really only have to charge myself for 27 minutes. So I'm going to plug in 27 for X. Okay? And now I'm going to simplify. So let's see how much this call is going to cost us. So 27 times 10 is going to give me $2.70 plus 25 cents. So that call, that 30-minute call, is going to cost me $2.95. Again, 25 cents for the first 3 minutes, 10 cents for each additional minute. All right, let's look at one more. Sometimes, instead of giving a rate, meaning a slope, a word problem gives you two relationships at different points in time between the variables. This kind of problem is giving you 2 points. You must find the slope and then use one of the points to write an equation. All right, so let's look at this next one. Suppose a 5-minute overseas call costs $5.91 and a 10-minute call costs $10.86. The cost on the call and the length of the call are related. Okay, so it's not telling me an average rate of change. All right, the first thing I want to do is set my variables. Remember I said that time is usually always your x, so the cost of the call depends on the time. The cost of the call depends on the time. All right, so now each of these these points in time are actually points. So if time is my x, then a 5-minute call, my 1 point would be 5.91. And my other point for a 10-minute call would be 10.86. Making sure when I write my points, I put the x and y's in the appropriate place. So I don't have my slope, I don't have the y-intercept, so I actually now have 2 points. And remember, the minimum you need to write an equation of a line, what did we say? It's a point and a slope. Well, I have 2 points, so what do I have to do? I have to find the slope. Okay, so how do we do that? We're going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Rise with a y over run. Okay, rise over run. Change in y over a change in x. So 1086 minus 591 all over 10 minus 5. Which gives me 495 over 5, which is 99. All right, so that's telling me that 99 cents per minute, okay? That's how much I'm getting charged. Okay, so then it asks, what is the cost y of a call of X minutes duration? That's just asking you to find the equation. Find equation. Okay, well now I have either point and a slope, so I can write an equation of a line. Now this time I'm just going to use y equals mx plus b to show you the different method, but you could use point slope and then put it in y equals mx plus b. But if I wanted to use y equals mx plus b to find my equation, well then I would take a point and a slope and I'd plug it in to solve for b. So I would do 591 equals that 99 cent slope and the x I have from that same point of 5, and I'd solve for b. This gives me 591.995 times 5, okay, plus b. And that's going to give me a b of 96 cents. Because 0.995, do that on your calculator for me. Hopefully you got 495. So when you subtract, you're going to get 96 cents. Okay, so then my equation is y equals 0.99x plus 96 cents. Okay, so let's interpret this. What does this 96 cents mean in the context of this problem? Well, it was talking about the cost of a call, okay, an overseas call, and it's the starting point. So that's actually the amount just to connect the call. And 99 cents is how much per minute, the amount per minute. Okay, so the question asks you, how long can you spend on the phone if you have $12 to spend? Okay, so that's saying I have $12, so I have a y of $12. So 12 gets plugged in for y, and then I solve for x. All right, so I'm going to subtract 0.96 That's going to give me $11.04 equals 0.99x. I'm going to divide both sides 0.99. Again, you can use your calculators here. And that's going to give me x equals 11.2. All right, so we really, just want to kind of round here, because how long could I really talk? Well, you can't talk 12 minutes because you don't have enough for 12 minutes. So you can talk for 11 minutes. So we would round down in this case. All right, guys, sorry it was a little long today. I'm going to stop there and we are going to finish this up tomorrow. Have a great day.